I knew I couldn't have children, but I played along with my wife until the perfect moment to strike. You'll soon find out how I played along when my wife said she was pregnant, even though I knew it wasn't my baby. I'm 40, and I married my wife, who's 35, 3 years ago. We had been together for 5 years before tying the knot, and honestly, she was way more into the idea of marriage than I ever was. But to keep her happy, I eventually said yes. About a year ago, she started pushing for us to have a baby. It wasn't really something I was dying to do, but again, to make her happy, I went along with it. Trying to conceive turned out to be a brutal journey for us. Things got so stressful that it started messing with my mental health. During that time, my wife's attitude took a sharp turn. She became mean and bitter. I did my best to handle it, but after a while, it just wore me down. Eventually, I decided to get myself tested, thinking maybe there was a problem on my end. A few days after the test, the doctors dropped a bomb on me. I was sterile. Hearing that crushed me. Even though becoming a dad hadn't originally been my dream, somewhere along the way, I started picturing my life with a kid, and I really wanted it. Knowing I'd never have that chance naturally was absolutely heartbreaking. But the real nightmare hadn't even started yet. I was trying to build up the nerve to tell my wife the truth, that I was the reason we couldn't get pregnant, but I was terrified of how she'd react. She had already been treating me so horribly. I couldn't even imagine how she'd take even worse news. So I stayed quiet for a few days, trying to figure out how to break it to her. Before I could say anything, though, she blindsided me. 5 days after I found out I was sterile, she sat me down with this big, serious look on her face. I thought for sure she had found out somehow and was about to unleash hell. Instead, she smiled wide and told me she was pregnant. I felt like the floor fell out from under me. I sat there frozen while she went on celebrating, completely unaware of what was actually going through my head. I forced myself to join in and act happy just to keep up appearances. But the next day, I went straight back to the clinic and got tested again, just to be absolutely sure. Same result, I was definitely sterile. I didn't know what to think. If I couldn't be the father, that meant only one thing. My wife had deceived me. The idea itself made my stomach turn. I knew there was no way she could have gotten any medical help without my knowledge. I handled all the finances, and procedures like that aren't cheap. No, this had to be a deception. The thought was so overwhelming that for a few days, I did nothing. I just watched as my wife threw herself into planning this huge party to announce the pregnancy. She was glowing with happiness, and I was sitting there broken inside, pretending everything was fine. I didn't even tell my own family about any of it. It felt way too personal and humiliating to share. I also didn't confront her right away, partly because too much time had already passed, and partly because I needed to know who she had deceived me with. If I accused her now, she might just pack up and leave, and I'd never get the full truth. As it turned out, I didn't have to wait long. On the day of the party, the house was packed with our families, our friends, and even a few of my coworkers. Among the guests was our neighbor, a 25-year-old guy who lived right across the street. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this guy is seriously good-looking, like, unfairly so. He's a model, still trying to break into the big leagues, and had moved in with his aunt to be closer to the city since his family lived way out in the sticks. My wife had always been a little too friendly with him. When he first moved in, she used to cook for him and his aunt all the time. He'd been over for dinner a few times, and he always seemed nice enough, polite, smart, easy to talk to. Turns out, he's a literature major too, just like my wife, and they hit it off immediately over shared interests. I never thought much of it back then. He seemed harmless, and I trusted my wife. But the moment he walked into our house that day, and I saw my wife's eyes light up in a way I hadn't seen in a long time, my stomach dropped. I could instantly tell something was off. The second he walked through the door, she made a beeline straight for him, and they hugged, way longer than she hugged anyone else that day. Nobody else seemed to pick up on it, but I did. I could feel it in my gut. Something was definitely brewing between them. I just needed proof. So I made an excuse to go to the bathroom, but instead, I slipped into our bedroom and grabbed her laptop. A few days after she told me she was pregnant, I'd already managed to check her phone while she was asleep, but I didn't find anything suspicious there. Her laptop, though, had been trickier. Every time I was home, she was glued to it, watching something, typing away, always flipping the screen if I got too close. If I asked what she was doing, she'd just smile and say she was working on her novel. This had been going on for months, and like a fool, I respected her privacy because I thought she was genuinely writing something. But after what I knew now, I was pretty sure there was no novel, just secrets she didn't want me to see. Luckily, there was no password. I got in easily. After some digging around, I found that she had another email account besides the one I knew about. I switched over to it, and that's when everything hit me like a punch to the gut. The inbox was packed with love letters between her and our neighbor. His name was right there in the email address, so there was no mistaking it. In the more recent messages, she was telling him she was pregnant. He didn't exactly jump for joy. In fact, he was pissed. Their email stopped for a bit after that, probably because he wanted to cut things off. But she clearly wasn't ready to let go. Eventually, I found the worst email of them all, the one that made me sick to my stomach. In it, she told him she'd already talked to a lawyer friend and that she was planning to file for divorce right after the baby was born. The whole reason she pushed me to have a kid was to lock down child support and alimony. Then, once she had the money rolling in, she planned to ditch me and ride off into the sunset with her broke model boyfriend. Reading that email felt like getting punched in the chest. Even now, just thinking about it makes me nauseous. But I didn't waste time sitting there feeling sorry for myself. I took out my phone, snapped a bunch of pictures of the emails for evidence, and put everything back exactly how I found it. Honestly, at that point, the deception itself wasn't even the worst part. What disgusted me was how she tried to trap me, how she planned to use an innocent child just to milk me for money and fund her dream life with another man. That level of manipulation was something else. And the craziest part? She acted so happy, so perfect, like nothing was wrong. Her fake smiles made my blood boil. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to sit back and take it. No way. She needed to feel even a fraction of the anger, heartbreak, and betrayal I was dealing with. Call me crazy, but I wasn't going to let her get away clean. So I made up my mind to play the long game. I'd pretend to be the perfect husband, the excited father-to-be, and when the time was right, when she least expected it, I'd destroy her little fantasy world. For the next 9 months, I stuck to the plan. I played my role to perfection. I was the supportive husband, going to every doctor's appointment, making sure she took her vitamins, helping her every step of the way. It wasn't easy. Every time she smiled at me or acted like everything was fine, it made me want to scream. But instead, it just made me more determined to see it through. Then, just a few days ago, the moment finally came as she went into labor. I was nervous as hell, not because I was about to be a dad. I already knew I wasn't, but because I knew what was about to go down. I stayed calm, got her to the hospital myself, and called her parents to let them know. I didn't bother calling mine. I didn't want them there when things blew up. Her parents had a long drive ahead of them, so for a little while, it was just me and her. And that's when I decided to drop the bomb. Once she was safely in the hospital room, I leaned in and told her I was going to step outside and call our neighbor so he could come be there for her. She looked shocked and started stuttering, saying there was no need for that she didn't want some stranger in the room while giving birth. I just smiled at her and pulled out the results of my fertility test, along with the divorce papers I had filed just a few days before her due date. I made sure to carry them with me that day. She looked through everything, still confused, so I explained it to her that even if I wanted to, I couldn't have gotten her pregnant. The baby wasn't mine. Then I told her about the emails I found on her secret account. That's when it finally clicked for her. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. I just turned around and walked out while she was still sitting there, struggling to find the words. Honestly, my heart was beating so hard I thought I might end up needing a hospital bed myself. But I made it out, pulled out my phone, and called our neighbor to let him know that my wife was in labor. I didn't wait for him to say anything. I hung up right after delivering the news. Then I got into my car and waited nearby for her parents to show up. The moment I spotted her dad's car pulling into the driveway, I got the hell out of there. I even turned my phone off, just in case, and started driving until I reached a motel a little ways out of town. I had packed a bag a few weeks earlier and kept it stashed in my trunk, just in case, so I had everything I needed with me. I spent the rest of the day watching TV, drinking beer, and doing whatever I could to get my mind off everything. That night, for the first time in a long while, I slept pretty peacefully, knowing the whole act was finally behind me. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. Unsurprisingly, there were hundreds of messages from my wife and the neighbor, none of which I even bothered opening. I did check a few texts from my parents and my brother, though. I figured my wife had probably tried to contact them when she couldn't reach me. So I decided to call my parents back. I told them I'd be coming home soon and asked if they could get my brother over too, because I needed to explain everything to them. They deserved to know what was going on. When I got to my parents' house, my brother was already there. They all looked confused and a little pissed off, which made sense, considering in their eyes, I had just disappeared during the birth of my own child. I sat them down and told them the full story. I laid out everything, the deception, the neighbor, the emails, all of it. By the time I finished, they were speechless. I braced myself for a bunch of questions or accusations, but none came. My dad just said he hoped things wouldn't get any worse, and the others stayed quiet. So, thankfully, that went way smoother than I expected. That was a few days ago. Since then, my family hasn't really said much. Meanwhile, my wife has been losing her mind, blowing up my phone accusing me of ruining her first experience as a mother. She's been calling and texting nonstop, but I haven't answered a single time. Even the neighbor had the nerve to text me a few hours ago, saying I should set aside our differences for her sake and at least talk to her once. I couldn't believe the audacity. They're trying to act like I'm just mad over some petty thing, like this wasn't a full-on life-shattering deception. In his message, he even said something about how my wife supposedly started to fall back in love with me during her pregnancy, that it caught both of them by surprise, and that I should maybe give our marriage another shot. Yeah, right? If she was falling back in love with me, why was he still around? I don't know why they think I'm that gullible. My wife's upset, but there's nothing I can do about it. She's mostly mad that I knew about everything from the start, stayed with her through the pregnancy, and didn't say a word, and now she's trying to flip it and say I deceived her by pretending. Update: it's been almost a week since the baby was born. I'm still holed up in this motel, and I have no plans to go visit her or the baby. She keeps calling and texting, but I've made it very clear that I'm not interested in hearing her out. I haven't blocked her yet, but I did block the neighbor after he kept trying to get me to reconsider and talk to her. I'm sure the only reason he's sticking around is because if she gets something out of the divorce settlement, alimony, or whatever, he benefits too. Neither of them has a real job. My wife was a stay-at-home spouse, and he's just a struggling model trying to make ends meet. I always appreciated and respected that my wife wanted to stay home, but the truth is, she wasn't just handling the house, she was also cheating on me behind my back. And that's something I just can't forgive. And before anyone tries to come at me for it, let me be clear. I never once suggested she quit her job after we got married. Back when we were dating and she was working, I supported her completely. She's the one who said she wanted to leave her job and focus on taking care of our home. I didn't fight her on it because it was her choice, and I was earning enough for both of us anyway. Now, I'm pretty confident my lawyer can get me out of paying alimony once we prove her deception. And I'm hoping that won't be too hard. As for my neighbor, he's still struggling to land any decent paying modeling gigs, so trying to cover his own expenses, my wife's, and a baby's? Yeah, good luck with that. Even combining whatever little money they have, it's going to be next to impossible for them to stay afloat. Meanwhile, I'm just grateful to be out of the mess, and I have no plans to give them anything, not even my attention. I just hope my wife gets the hint and doesn't waste more of my time trying to drag out this divorce. I'd love it if she didn't, but honestly, given her complete lack of sense lately, she might, and if she does, I'm ready for it. The screenshots of all the emails I found on her secret account are still safely backed up on my phone and my laptop. So even if she tries to delete the account, it won't matter. I have the proof, and I know I'll be fine. Worst case scenario, even if I end up having to pay her some money, at least I won't be stuck being married to her anymore. She should actually be thankful I'm giving her time to move out of our house on her own instead of evicting her, because the house is fully in my name. I'm just hoping now that this all blows over sooner rather than later. Update 2. Turns out, I was right, my wife's a complete idiot. She decided she wanted to negotiate, because she wasn't happy with the settlement I offered, which was basically just covering what she'd spent during our marriage. And honestly, even that was way more generous than she deserved. I don't know what kind of miracle she's hoping for, but hey, good for her. Yesterday, she texted me saying she had moved out. I was honestly relieved, thinking maybe she went back to live with her parents or something. But nope, when I got home, I found out she had just moved across the street into the neighbor's house. Yeah, across the freaking street. So now I get the pleasure of seeing both of their faces every day. For a second, I thought about going back to a hotel. But then I thought, screw that, this is my house. I have every right to live here. I'm not the one who needs to run away just because they're trying to make things uncomfortable for me. I did wonder why she didn't just move back in with her parents, because living with a neighbor is only going to make things worse for her in the divorce. But I didn't have to wonder for long. While scrolling through the mountain of unread messages I had from the past few days, I finally noticed one from her father. I hadn't responded to a lot of people, so his message had gotten buried. It was a long text. He apologized for everything his daughter had done and said he and the rest of the family strongly disapproved of her behavior. Hearing that from him meant a lot to me. It validated everything I'd been feeling. I could feel myself getting emotional, but I held it together. He told me that after she said she planned to contest the divorce, he cut her off completely. Nothing my wife's been doing lately makes any sense to me. Every single move she's made has only hurt her own case. You'd think even she would realize that by now. Either she's truly clueless, or she's still got some twisted plan she's trying to pull off. I'm hoping it's just stupidity, but honestly, I wouldn't put anything past her at this point. Living right across from them is definitely going to create some complications. I know they're going to try to provoke me, make me uncomfortable, maybe even try to make me jealous. But I'm not giving them the satisfaction. I'm determined not to react, no matter what, because the second I do, they'll try to use it against me. All things considered, I'm still saving a ton of money by not having to live in a hotel. It's been about a month now since the divorce settlement negotiations started, and so far, things aren't looking good for my wife. Update 3. Like I said, it's been a month since we kicked off the divorce negotiations, and honestly, it's been a disaster for her. I was able to prove beyond a doubt that she had been cheating. She even made my life easier by moving in with the very guy I accused her of deceiving me with, so there was no way she could deny it. She tried to spin some fake story, claiming that I was an alcoholic, and that's why I was sterile, and apparently, that was supposed to justify her affair. She said I had become cruel and bitter toward her while we were trying to conceive. But that lie fell apart real quick, because everyone knows I quit drinking entirely last year when we started trying for a baby, and I haven't touched alcohol since. Again, I have no idea what she thought she was doing. It was just desperate and dumb. I guess she was just grasping at straws because her original plan had blown up in her face. These days, she's too busy being a new mom to mastermind anything, and her baby daddy was never the brightest to begin with, so they're both pretty much stuck. By now, both she and I know there's almost no shot she's walking away with any alimony. I'm guessing she finally came clean to her boyfriend about it too, because a few days ago, I saw her get kicked out of his house with the baby. Yeah, that's right. I was sitting in my living room when I heard all kinds of screaming and shouting coming from across the street. Next thing I know, I see her and her son getting shoved out of the house while the neighbor was yelling every insult you could imagine at her. Watching it happen, even after everything she'd done, I couldn't just sit there. Enmity or not, I wasn't going to let an innocent baby suffer because of their mess. By the time I ran across the street, he had already slammed the door on her. She was standing there, holding the baby, both of them crying their eyes out. I picked up the baby and grabbed her hand to lead them back to my house. Then I called her father and asked him to come pick her up. He showed up within an hour, thanked me again for everything, and took her and the baby away. During that hour, she cried like a little kid, so I was basically stuck comforting both her and the baby at the same time. I thought about calling the cops too, but she begged me not to. She didn't want more trouble. She kept apologizing over and over for everything, for the lies, the deception, everything. She admitted she was so desperate to be with the guy she loved that she threw away her self-respect and her morals, and now she was truly sorry. She told me she would accept whatever happened and wouldn't fight the divorce anymore, just so we could get it finalized faster. Honestly, that's probably the only good thing to come out of this whole disaster. I really hope she eventually presses charges against that guy and gets her life back together. But either way, I did what I could. I stayed a decent human being throughout all of it, and I don't regret a thing.